Does anyone actually remember the before times? When your Asian boyfriend's personality turns out to be made of beard. 10 months ago, this was during the very start of my subreddit, so thank you very much, Mother of Rain. And greetings, everyone! As I seem to have caught the virus, I've been very stuck at home, and to kill some time, I've been listening to a whole lot of r/niceguys content on YouTube. Oh, that's a good choice. But after burning through hours of that, I graduated to Neckbeard Tales. Oh, not sure if that's a graduation or a devolution, but I'm proud of you. All these stories made me realize just how many encounters I myself have had with several such, units, specimens, whatever. And since I'm not allowed to leave my apartment, I figured I'd post some of these experiences to pay tribute to the community that has entertained me over the past few days. And your tribute is humbly accepted. Insert the usual rant here about being a first-time poster and a non-native English speaker or formatting issues or whatever else, and let's get into it. All of my teen years, I was surrounded by a variety of people who could very well qualify as neckbeards or legbeards, especially if one focused on their more beardy qualities. So what you're saying here is beardiness is like a spectrum, huh? For the most part, these people were perfectly lovely, even if very eccentric. However, some of them had behaviors that were less than okay. Unfortunately, back then, I had a sense of self-worth akin to that of a worn-out dishcloth, and my comprehension of what one should put up with was completely messed up. Perhaps we'll get into those tales a bit later. Yeah, I think that's gonna go to some dark places. But if you write it, I will get to it. Today, however, I wanted to talk about my first real boyfriend. As the beard of this story, his name could be something like Mound Beard, but I'll just refer to him as Mound. Despite the name I chose for him, Mound was not physically reminiscent of a neckbeard, at least not from far away. He was Asian, lean, short, and honestly quite active. Okay, but what is Mound? I assumed he would be like just a lump. Maybe the lumpiness is in his soul. I met him when I was about 16 and he was 18. Is that? I don't think that's okay. We worked part-time together at this small store, and on occasion we chatted about random things. He seemed to have a decent sense of humor, and as my home life at the time was far from a happy one, the energetic positivity that he radiated was refreshing. It's a trap, OP. Be careful, OP. Mound was kind to me, and I think I mistook the appreciation I had for it as a crush on him. This I would only realize a year later. Anyway, because of my misread feelings, when he asked me out, I was quite happy to say yes. The first few weeks, the seas were calm and the sailing was smooth. We met up at work and went for some walks, had our first kiss, all that teenage puppy love type of stuff. After a while though, some red flags started to creep up the mast. I'm loving all these nautical references. The very first one I noticed a month or so into our relationship was when we met up at my school. Mound was there visiting some friends of his, and when he saw me, he waved and walked over. The smell that hit me was eye-watering. I didn't even know that a human could smell like that. It wasn't sweat or musk or anything that I could recognize. What it was, however, was pungent. I imagine that bacterian scrot from Dragon Ball probably smelled like that. You hurt me. You hurt me for no reason. I didn't want to imagine bacterian scrot today. That was too late. I made the short exchange by claiming I was in a hurry to my next class and fled. I was rather shocked. Had he forgotten his deodorant or something? Mound had had a very faint smell to him before, but it was never disturbing like that. Sure, his hair always seemed greasy, but I thought it was due to overuse of gel. I decided to shake this off and not talk to him about it. I didn't want to hurt his feelings over him being a stinky boy once. This, however, would not be the last time that I would be engulfed by this stench. Honestly, the you stink conversation probably would suck, but only for like 5 seconds. 5-second conversation of awkwardness or entire year of awkwardness. You pick. Anywho, turns out that Mound put more effort into his hygiene for before he went to work. And as most of our hangouts had taken place outside before or after work, the smell never really got too bad. On the days that he had no shift, his body odor was not the type that I think anyone would imagine spiraling out of such a slender Asian guy. I don't think weight or race precludes you from having body odor. I made it a point to learn to breathe through my mouth only while around Mound. Around the same time, Mound started to exhibit some other concerning qualities. I think most teenagers at one point or another suffer from some form of the main character syndrome, but in his case, it was quite extreme. If at the time, I felt like the most worthless burden on society, Mound saw himself as standing barely a step down from Jesus effing Christ. He told me that he fancied himself a great savior of the people. Yeah, this is another Iowa beard situation, isn't it? In his mind, his words, he stood atop a great mountain, below which the regular people wandered earth, helpless, and in his benevolence, he would at times descend among the common folk and save them from whatever evils they faced. Bro, this is Delusions of Grandeur on another level. This should have been the part where I said, yeah, I'm out, and ran for the hills, but I was a kid. I was surrounded by mostly endearing weirdos in my friend group, and I didn't want to hurt his feelings by calling him out on the ridiculous ego trip he seemed to be on for whatever reason. I don't know, bro. Don't even do it for yourself. Do it because this dude is in some clear need of psychiatric help. This matter of his inflated ego was further emphasized when I learned about his writing hobby. Mound disclosed to me that he had this series of dreams that he dove into every night. In these dreams, he was the hero. There was magic and baddies for him and his friends to defeat. There was also a magic system that was the exact same as in Final Fantasy. Wait, is this a book or lucid dreaming? What's happening? Even the names of the spells were the same. He'd elected to write these dreams down and had the intention of turning them into a book series. Yes, I plagiarized my dreams. This is the part where I spoke up for the first time, saying that using the spell names straight from the Final Fantasy series might not fly at the publishers. Mound didn't seem to consider this a problem and brushed me off. Then, I actually got to read some of the story. I've mentally blocked out most of that experience, but it was a truly rare degree of bad. God, I need to go read some bad fan fictions. The story was so cringy. I struggled to keep my face straight. The writing was so clumsy and full of grammatical mistakes, I had to read most sentences 3 times in order to understand what they were trying to say. In fact, I believe that any of our insert local language here teachers would print out a copy just so they could tear it up and then burn the pieces out of the sheer frustration at their own failure to teach this guy the bare basics of written expression. It's so over the top. It's perfect. The one thing that I do recall very vividly was his habit of describing the character's clothing in unnecessarily high detail. He was particularly obsessed with the colors for some reason. Each article of clothing was described much like this. Tommy walked in, and he was wearing a blue hoodie and a red shirt with black flame patterns on it. Under that, he had black pants with a brown belt and then some white shoes with green laces, under which he wore neon yellow tennis socks that he had bought last week from a store with a light blue sign that said, "Buy your socks here." All I really learned about Tommy here is that he has no fashion sense. Okay, that last bit of the socks was me sort of exaggerating, but the rest of it is depressingly accurate. And no, he didn't use any punctuation. I began to realize just how delusional and, well, stupid Mound was. Sometimes these are the hardest lessons to learn. I started feeling out of place around him, and I started second-guessing my feelings. But Mound cared for me, right? I owed him to at least try, right? No to both. And I'd never broken up with anyone before. How does one do that kindly? It doesn't have to be kind, it just has to be honest. Now, as the smarter ones of you may have put two and two together and realized that Mound's sense of grandeur and delusional savior complex might have played a part in why he chose to court me, because as mentioned before, I did not have a happy home life at the time. I eventually realized this too, not because I was as smart, no. I realized this because he literally told me so. This came up when he one day proudly explained to me that he didn't want to be seen as normal. He wanted to be special. And one way for him to achieve that was to collect people who were different. In my case, this didn't mean anything mental or physical about me was off, just that my circumstances and the people I was around were what you could call unusual. And as such, I fit his collection. Bro, that is the weirdest thing ever to say to somebody's face. I bet you go to his house, it's filled with like skin furniture and missing girls' driver's licenses. What? With a sinking feeling, I realized that I was only his girlfriend to serve his narrative about Mound the Savior. I was the damsel, the magical princess he could claim as his reward at the end of his path as the chosen one. Gross. You've been watching too many movies. I wish I could tell you I snapped at him immediately and told him that all he's standing atop is a mound of crap, but I wasn't, and honestly still am not, somebody who explodes on people. That's okay, sometimes passive aggression's the answer. I did end up breaking up with him a week or so later. The reason I gave him was that he was a danger to himself, and I didn't want to play a part in him getting hurt. I said that his morbidly obese sense of magnificence scared me, and that I needed to get away from it. After this, he sort of just disappeared into the night, quite literally. We didn't have too many personal encounters thereafter. I quit my job at the store and focused on my studies, and with that, our main connection was thankfully severed. I did, however, hear about him from our mutual friends on a few occasions. He procured a new girlfriend a year or so later, and apparently he was very heavily pressing her for some boom boom to the point of maltreatment. I was very happy that him and I never got near to that point. I simply wasn't ready, and even if I had been, after he got all stinky, ugh, I would have never even considered it. Needless to say, I was very shocked to hear about this new characteristic of his, and therefore even more glad that I had ended things. We out here dodging bullets like in the Matrix. You might be wondering, why did I date someone like this for several months to begin with? Well, partially because of the reasons I mentioned above. Low self-esteem, gratitude, first relationship, spineless, but also because I could see why he was this way. He grew up in a house with only his brother and father, the latter being a drunk who seemed to burn all his money on feeding his ever-growing beer belly. I never heard of him being violent, and it seemed like both the boys were very fond of him, as were their friends. They considered him cool. I'm gonna be a cool dad party demon, whoa! You're an alcoholic, get some help. Still, I can't imagine that an upbringing like that would lead a guy to grow up without some trauma or distortion to his character. I thought that perhaps these stories and his self-image were maybe to help him feel more in control. I tried to help him, but at 16, I was hardly equipped to do so. That was some sort of nasty soup for an educated therapist to put their spoon into, not for a teenager. Eventually, I lost track of him as our friend circles changed and disbanded. I do hope that he grew out of these delusions, and even more that he's treated his future partners with far more respect, and also picks them due to more healthy reasons than to avoid appearing too normal. To this day, Mound remains the only relationship that I regret having, but perhaps I had to experience this to avoid such people in the future. Wherever you are, Mound, I hope you're doing better, and no longer guard the earth with your feet planted in crap. Mother of Rain. P.S. Mound did have a goatee, but no proper neckbeard. Well, there is a lot to unpack here, honestly. It seems like OP did a pretty good job at unpacking Mound and sort of realizing why he was the way that he was. She also seems to have come to term with the maltreatment she's received in the past and why that made her tolerate things that should not be tolerated. So it seems like everybody here is healing and learning and growing, and we just got kind of a cringy little story out of it. The delusion is very worrying, but he also didn't go full Iowa beard as far as we know, so I guess we're gonna have to call that a win. I do guarantee that Mound either grew out of this and became a normal human being, or he ended up in prison. Either way, problem solves itself, doesn't it? Still a little short on time, so let's check out OP's other story. There's also a series in here, which I might get into at some point. But for now, this looks like a second one-off, so let's see. When the neckbeard was still just a little stubble. Yep, not hairy quite yet, but he sure is greasy. Greetings, everyone. The previous story I posted was perhaps on the heavier side. So today I'm going to be writing in a bit more lighthearted way, even if the topic is still rather unpleasant. This will be my third story on Reddit, and I'm slowly getting better at things like formatting. Hopefully you'll enjoy this read and might even get a few laughs out of it. Last story didn't seem too heavy. Then again, my perspective is completely skewed because I cover these unpleasant things every day. Anyways, for the first time, let me introduce you a cast list. Palm, the stubble, aka the beard of this tale. Despite his young age, 12, already a fully developed perv. Tall, lanky, handsy, and too illiterate to comprehend the meaning of the word no. Mora, Mother of Rain, your OP. Palm's classmate and soon-to-be target of his affections. Short, slim, and the master of reading whilst walking. That is a talent. Tan is OP's younger cousin, popular and beautiful. Brunt is Tan's classmate, one of her fans. He was big for an 11-year-old and was known for getting in trouble. I mean, usually I would disqualify this story, you know, they're kids, essentially. That is the time in your life for cringe. But there is no time in your life to put your hands on another person without their consent. So, Palm the stubble, I guess you're in for it today. So now let's get into the story. I had just started 6th grade. Summer was over and the crisp autumn air was rolling in from the northeast, nipping at the ears of those who deemed themselves too cool for hats. Whoa! The previous year had laid the first changes toward womanhood upon my body, and summer had changed me further, adding a hint of curve to my otherwise very slim 12-year-old body. This, creepily, caught the eye of one of my classmates, Palm. God, I don't like this already. This is... I shouldn't have done it. I shouldn't have done it! I was far too focused on my booba to pay much mind to the rounds that his eyes made on me, but before half the leaves on the trees had fallen, Palm decided that staring was no longer enough. It was time to get more hands-on with his new primary obsession, aka my butt. The first, more physical encounter went something like this. Palm slaps OP's butt. OP, what the heck was that for? Palm, oh, that was just an accident. I mean, there was a bug. This is the dumbest excuse ever, but I don't know, we were 12. OP narrows her eyes at Palm. Okay. Turns back to her book and keeps walking down the hall. Palm then decides to run his whole hand over her buttock. OP, all right, what the hell do you think you're doing? Why are you touching me? Palm,
I can't help it. You got such a nice butt.
OP stares at Palm like instead of saying words, his mouth had just opened up and produced a whole herd of cows in a full stampede. And then OP says, say what? Palm,
Yeah, I want to squeeze it.
bro. No! Where are your parents? OP takes off running and Palm yells after OP,
I promise you'd like it.
OP says, no! Oh, if only the word no had teeth, huh? Well, the next couple of weeks, Palm would go on to touch me whenever he could, mostly in brief smacks. It's time for you to pull out that metal Sailor Moon pencil case and give him the business. Show him what for! I grew ever more irritated with his antics and told him with an increasing volume to stop it. When this failed to deter him, he got brave enough to actually lay his hands on me to cup a feel. I started to reject him physically. I mean, you should have been physical since he first started getting physical, which was like the first interaction. I would push him away from me, slap him. I even kicked him in the chest once. In those days, I was pretty flexible. All for naught. He seemed uncomfortably elated by my attempts to fight back, and I absolutely could not understand this. I did ask a teacher for help regarding what I should do, but they told me to tell Palm to stop, and did nothing further. Fail. Today, I think he might have been a masochist of some sort. I can't help but wonder, what could have turned a 12-year-old into such a creep? I mean, somebody is setting the example for him with all of this stuff, and that's probably the most terrifying part of this tale. I remember one time during all of this, he came up to me right after school and said,
Hey, OP, why not just become my girlfriend? How about it?
I took a deep breath and screamed every last curse I knew at his face, and then with as much volume as I could muster, no! And ran off as fast as I could. I hoped that this would stop him from bothering me, but the very next day, he was at it again as if nothing at all had happened. On a different day, he came by my desk, leaned on it, and seductively licked his teeth in front of me. Licked his teeth? Okay. Palm,
would you like to come with me and practice some French kissing?
I'd rather stick a knitting needle in my ear. No thanks. OP lowers her book just enough to see Palm's face and instantly regrets seeing what he's doing with his tongue. I would not. Please leave me alone. Palm.
Oh, come on. It'd be so...
Does more creepy stuff with his tongue.
Fun.
OP hides behind the book. I'd rather kiss a hyena. Leave! Are his teeth bad? I guess at 12 they like just grown in again. They haven't had time to rot out of his head quite yet. Is this what it's like to be 12 now? All I wanted to do when I was 12 was play Pokemon. So maybe 3 months down the line, I was chatting with my cousin Tan in the schoolyard. We were and are very different people and don't talk often to each other. We get along, but our interests just don't normally align. I was telling Tan about my situation with Palm when the aforementioned devil decided to show up and start making a whole circus out of himself. When I ignored him, he turned his attention towards Tan. This made me even more desperate to put an end to the whole thing. I could endure annoyance, but I would not forgive myself if I'd put Tan on the radar of this absolute creep. Fortunately, the bell rang and we had to get indoors. I saw Tan trot up to one of her classmates and talk to him in a hushed voice. I bit my lip and thought furiously, how could I stop Palm from bothering Tan? And how could I make him leave me alone as well? Honestly, at 12 years old, I don't have any really great ideas. But I do suppose that OP does. I didn't go outside during the next break. Instead, I sat in the bathroom with my knees against my chest, deep in thought. I contemplated trying to ask for help from a teacher, but they hadn't taken my complaint seriously before. No vocal or physical rejection had any effect on this goon. So, what was I supposed to do? I exited the bathroom at the end of break and caught a glimpse of a teacher dragging Palm and my sister's classmate Brunt up the stairs. What the? I saw Tan walking up the stairs at a cautious distance, but looking very pleased with herself. What's all that about? I asked. Tan grinned and told me that when she told Brunt about Palm, he'd gotten very angry, and during the break he jumped Palm and they ended up in a little brawl. Well, hot damn, that'll solve it. Brunt's the bodyguard. Both the boys got in trouble for fighting, and even Tan was called in for the talk as the orchestrator of this attack. Brunt had told the teacher that she directly told him to beat up Palm, and I think that very well may be true, but they just asked, well, if Tan asked you to jump into a well, would you? And Brunt mumbled, no. And that was that. He would, though. This encounter shook the nuts out of Palm, and he never laid a hand on me again. He did get a girlfriend who hated me with a passion for being so cruel to her poor dear Palm, and constantly thought that I'd try to steal him away from her. Yeah, whatever drama keeps you going, lady. I kept telling her that I was just happy he had found someone else to focus on, but she never quite bought it. I think Palm fed her some lies about me having been his girlfriend, but I never got the whole story. They broke up within about 3 months. I switched schools at the end of 6th grade and never saw Palm again. I don't know if his stubble grew into a full neck beard or if he eventually became a stand-up guy with just a short pervy chapter in his past, but I truly hope for the latter. Thank you for reading my post, everyone. I hope it was a bit lighter than the previous tale. All the best to y'all and stay healthy out there. Edit for improved format. Honestly, I think it was more uncomfortable, quite a bit darker than the first story, but that's absolutely fine. It's mostly because they're kids. Like, I never expect this from kids, man. But times they are a-changing, I guess. I'm just living on boomer fuel at the moment. It is what it is, but I do hope you guys enjoyed the story. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, do all those things. Follow me on whatever is down in the description. I appreciate you. Thank you to my Patreon patrons and YouTube channel members. I'll see you in the next one, friends. Always remember that you are loved, you are worthy, you definitely deserve it. And until then, bye-bye.